by
Hi, good
Slade.
morning, church.
Amen.
Ah! Sometimes. All right. We don't really have too many birthdays for this week, but we did have one yesterday. It was Sister Sandra Thornton. Happy birthday to you. Well, belated. Today, there is a pastor's aid meeting following service, and also a new members class following service. And on February 28th, there's a pastor's aid fish fry. I believe it's starting at noon, and I believe it's $12. Okay, I'm not sure how long it's extended. Probably what, 6 o'clock? Hey, come on out and go buy some fish. I believe that's all for our announcements here, but I'm going to ask Sister Carmina to come up for our Black History moment.
Good morning. As a part of Bethel Baptist Church Education Ministry, I have several announcements. First of all, I want to make this announcement for my grandson, Jordan Perry. He attends Cab Calloway School of the Arts, and they're having their 3rd annual dinner theater event. It's an improv murder mystery written by a Cab Calloway student. Come see The Great Space Cowboy mystery in the Cab cafeteria on February 28th or 29th. It'll be an exciting night full of fun, adventure, and mystery as you come board a spaceship with Captain Shamalama Ding Dong and his crew. Well, we know that from the 60s, right? And his crew as they journey to save a princess, battle some aliens, and travel the galaxy and catch a murderer. Doors open at 5. Tickets are $17 for students and $25 for adults. If anybody is interested in going, please see me after church. Okay, before we start our Black History, I'm so impressed that our youth come forward. So this is a test to see who's listening. So who knows who Claudette Colvin is? Claudette Colvin. Nobody? That's right. She's a civil rights pioneer that was 15 years old, and she refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white passenger. And this was before Rosa Parks, and that was from our first presenter for the month. Does anybody know who Peter Tabichi? He wasn't rich. He was a Kenyan science teacher and a Franciscan friar who won the 2019 Global Teacher Prize. But he donates 80% of his monthly income to the poor. And who knows who Robert Smalls is? That was last week. Who was Robert Smalls? Who said that? Robert Smalls was a slave that commandeered a cotton steamer and sailed through Confederate lines and delivered 17 black passengers to freedom. So please pay attention, because these are good facts. Okay, this week, I don't see John, oh, he's back there, all right. This week, our Black History Moment is being presented by a sophomore from Montgomery County Community College, majoring in audio engineering. He faithfully volunteers with Kids of the Kingdom. Music is his passion. In his spare time, he is a DJ, a composer, a lyricist, and a producer. He has a new album called Winter Season. Let's see if...
I don't know how you...
Is that loud enough?
I don't know if you surround yourself with young people or if you watch videos of people like just, having fun and all that, right? Because when you're an adult, you kind of move away from that, even though you never really stop being a kid. Right. Interesting. But it's the mindset that somehow,
I just wanted to hear the music part.
Already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to hear his new album, you can follow him on Winter Season at DJ Frostbite 3 on Instagram. Please welcome John Nathan Coleman.
How's everybody doing today? Alrighty. So to kick off the Black History moment, I have done James Fortin, and I'm actually going to make sure you guys think a little bit. I'm not going to tell you where he's from until the very end. I want you guys to guess where he's from. But James Fortin is a African-American abolitionist, and he's a wealthy businessman, and he's from blankety blank blank. So I'll make sure you guys. Okay, here we go. So born on September 2nd, 1766 in blank blank, James was born a free black man. Over the course of his lifetime, he would make a significant impact upon the fortunes of the American capitalist system and the livelihood of his contemporaries. He was raised by his parents, Thomas and Sarah Fortin. In his formative years, they were spent in Philadelphia. Oh, darn it. I gave it away. So he's a local. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My bad. I'm sorry. In his formative years, where they were spent in Philadelphia, he attended the Anthony's Benzit Quaker School for colored children. And by the time he turned 8 years old, he began working for Robert Bridges' sail loft. This was also the same job where his father worked as well. Sadly, during the following year, his father was the victim of an unfortunate boating accident and died. His horrible tragedy resulted in a 9-year-old James having to take on additional work just to support his own family. Over time, James became interested in politics and also campaigned for and supported the issues of temperance, which for some of you who don't know what temperance is, it's the abstinence of alcohol. Also with that, women's suffrage and the equal rights for African Americans. In the year of 1800, he became a leader in organizing a petition that called for Congress to emancipate all slaves. Given the fact that, and this was really interesting to me, given the fact that this was a presidential election year, rumor had it that a few of the presidential candidates among Thomas Jefferson were not too pleased with the Negro man advocating for the emancipation of slaves. This activism was also recognized when he wrote and published a pamphlet denouncing the Pennsylvania legislature of prohibiting the immigration of freed black slaves from other states. In his teen years, James worked as a powder boy during the Revolutionary War on the Loyal Lewis sailing ship. Being a powder boy in the Revolutionary War meant that you were the one manning the naval artillery guns and working as a member on the workship's crew. After being captured by the British Army, he was released and returned home to resume his previous job. Fortin, being pleased with his work and dedication, he was appointed to the foreman's position in the loft by his boss. By 1798, Bridges decided to retire and wanted Fortin to remain in charge of the loft. James was able to have his desires realized. Eventually, James Fortin owned the business and employed almost 40 workers. In 1817, Fortin joined the Richard Ellen to form the Convention of Color. In the 19th century, Allen was the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Interestingly, the organization argued for the migration of freed blacks to Canada, but passionately resisted any movement for a return to the African continent. Other prominent men who joined Fortin and Allen were Williams Wells Brown, Samuel Eli Cornish, and Henry Highland Garnet. James Fortin died on March 4th, 1842, after living an incredible life. His early years were devoted to providing for his widowed mother. His middle years towards acquiring a vast economic fortune and rectifying the brutal injustices that have been perpetuated upon his fellow African Americans, poor people, and women. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. I'm glad that Ms. Cormita mentioned about my album. I released the album about, say, 3 weeks ago. It's called Winter Season, and the topic is basically talking about how we kind of grow up too fast. You know, me being a college student, I'm experiencing that firsthand. But it's basically talking about how, as kids, we tend to learn and grow, and we learn differently, and we do things differently than we were as adults. And it's kind of just me reflecting on how that's affected me and how it can possibly, affect a lot of you guys. But just the theme is growing up. I have a couple of cards in my pocket, which I will make sure I display out on the table for you guys. But I'll make sure I bring in more cards next week. She's holding up a card right now. It's a scannable card, so if you have like a mobile device, you can scan it and it'll lead you straight to the streaming platforms. And I'm still trying to figure out a way to get CDs because I know some of you don't have mobile devices, so I'll make sure I'll put that on the way. But thank you guys for supporting me, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And that'll about wrap up for the announcements. Any further announcements will come from the pulpit. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalene, for those announcements. Let's keep all of our announcements in mind, and let's govern ourselves accordingly. We also want to thank the Education Ministry with Sister Alice Ingram as the president, the chairperson. Amen. And Sister Trustee N. Carmita Burton, coordinating for us and getting the people to speak. And I want to thank my son John for his presentation. He works hard and he's becoming quite the musician. We know when he dropped his CD because our electric bill went up a little bit. But we're grateful for all our young people and for what all our young people do as they grow and develop here at Bethel Baptist Church. Amen? Amen. A couple of additional announcements I want to share with you. Was talking to Brother Ray Houston. He's out in Arizona. He's recovering from surgery. And he asked me to tell the church to continue to pray for him. He's on the mend. And he's taking care of his cousin, I believe, out there in Arizona. But he's on the mend himself. And he also asked us to pray for his friend, Keith Briscoe. And so I told him that I would, and so I just asked that you keep Brother Ray Houston and Sister Tammy Houston up in our prayers, and also his friend, Brother Keith Bristow. Reverend Marlene Wood is not here today. She's under the weather. She called me yesterday, so she said, just ask the church to pray for her because she's a little bit under the weather. You know, this coronavirus, flu stuff, everything is going around in the air, so we need to take extra care in what we do. Amen? We don't want to be sick. There's a time you were sick and you just kind of bounce back from it, but it seems like now, you have to be extra careful. So we want you to be extra careful, and we want to pray for those who are under the weather with regard to the flu and sickness, because it's the season that goes around. We want to pray for Sister Patricia Lattimore. She's a little bit under the weather, and her husband, who's recovering from surgery, Brother Willie Lattimore. We want to pray for him. Oh, I see Sister Lattimore out there. Sister Lattimore. You're looking good. Amen. But we want to continue to pray for her. She ain't 100%, right? No, just kidding. But we want to continue to pray for Sister Lattimore. I believe it's that flu that comes from Dallas, but I don't know. I ain't no doctor. We also want to pray for Brother Derek Harper and Sister Sherry Harper and that family. Amen. We know that they're going through a hard, difficult time. We miss Sister Eleanor Harper, and we know that Derek misses her greatly. And we as the church family miss her. And Derek, we're still praying for you. We're praying for the family. We know that you are a wonderful son, an excellent son, giving your mom excellent care. And so we continue to lift you up and pray for you because we know after the service is over, everybody goes home, but the pain is still there. And so we're still going to continue to lift you up and pray for you, let you know that anything you need, we're here for you. Amen? Amen. Look over and see Sister Rose Harper come back from Canada. Amen. Amen. She was away. You bring some Canadian bacon back? No, just but we're glad you had a chance to go safely and to come back safely and be able to visit. Look out again. I see Sister Alice Ingram. She was on the high seas. And we're glad that she had a chance to get away and to come back and to be with us. So we're grateful for people who get a chance to get away from the church, get away, take some time to relax, but to safely come back to us. That's what we want. Amen? Amen. We want to also acknowledge, if you weren't there, we had a wonderful time on Thursday night. Sister Teresa Thornton gave the Black History program this past Thursday from 6 o'clock to 7:15. And we want to thank Sister Teresa Thornton for her gifts and for her presentation that night. Had a little bit of technical difficulty, but that didn't stop the presentation. Amen. And so we're grateful. Thank you, Sister Teresa Thornton, for sharing your gifts and sharing your presentation for us for commemorating and celebrating African American history. And she also shared with me a program that the first annual Black History celebration here at the church, about 34 years ago, almost on the same day. It was February 22nd, which was yesterday, in 1986 at 5:30. That was the first one. And so we're thankful for the tradition of continuing to celebrate Black history in the context of Bethel Baptist Church, because Black history is important because it's not just Black history for Black people. It is history that is a corrective, but it's also history that is something that everybody needs to know. When African American people do things, it's not just for African American people, it's for everybody. And we need to understand that. And so the story is that we need to make sure that everybody's story is told. And when one story is not told, then what happens is it impoverishes every other story. That's why it's important for us to share the story from the African American perspective, because there are some people who may get misinformation, but we want to make sure that we give them corrective information so that we can all move forward. Amen? Amen. One more comment before I take my seat. I want to make an announcement so that we can continue to be decent and in order when we come together in the church worship experience on Sunday morning. We encourage and we ask that no one give any spontaneous announcements during the worship service unless it's clear by the church clerk. That's one thing that we want to maintain and we want to express. We want to make sure that if there's any announcement that you have during the worship service or the worship experience, instead of spontaneously popping up, we want you to make sure that you clear the announcement through the church clerk so that we can be clear about the announcement and also be clear about the information that's communicated. All right? Amen. God bless you. God keep you.